It's 5 o'clock. And we're in the echo chamber. We'll try that again. 5:01 now. It's 5:01. Want to call the meeting to order for the Administration Committee. It's Tuesday, October 17th, and we'll begin with roll call.
Chair Cook?
Present.
Vice Chair Counter?
Present.
Supervisor Long?
Present.
Supervisor Burning?
Present.
Supervisor Fiedler? No Fiedler. We have a quorum.
Okay.
In light of that, you might just stay with the order.
For
And
now,
wait until
yeah.
it arrives.
Okay. Next, we have approval of the minutes for Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. Are there any, did anybody see anything that needs to be revised from the last minutes? Hearing none, they'll stand approved, and we'll move on for anyone from the public. Is there anyone from the public here tonight that wishes to speak?
Cricket.
Okay. We have nobody from the public for public comments, so we'll move on to, we'll stay in order for now.
Bob Fiedler did just join.
Oh, he just did.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Supervisor Fiedler is present and available.
Thank you. Well, then we will be moving the business items around a little bit to accommodate for the time that we have with one of the members. We'll move on to item number 6 to begin with, resolution for amendment number 5 to the 2023 budget for ARPA uses. I'll have Ken.
Yeah, this was, these two items that I put in this resolution were a starting point. They were what was removed at the last county board meeting. It was $100,000 for CASA, and then any residual amounts from going to the HVAC project. We didn't discuss the HVAC then at committee of the whole. Really, it's something that the county board will need to do at some point. I think there was some questions or preference that we wait until we know those dollar amounts better before we do it. So you don't have to act on that. I left it on there just because those were the two items that were removed, but you guys can amend it any way you like. But that was the starting point of where we got there.
Question, on the HVAC, can you just give us a little background? I mean, why you felt it was important to put it on there in the first place?
Yeah. Yes. So, so the ARPA dollars are COVID dollars. So one of the authorized uses specifically was anything that reduces the disease transmission. And an HVAC system was a qualifying expense. So we'll have nearly $10 million of HVAC going into this building. So I have plenty of expense that I can allocate the dollars to. So if we had known this, 3 years ago, I mean, we could have paid for part of the project with that. But so as projects are closing out, I'm projecting we'll be hundreds of thousands of dollars under budget. Actually just had sent an email to finance director and HHS director today, looking ahead at the spend rate that we have for the dollars that are allocated by the county board. And I know we're going to be under, even with some of the allocations we have. What I don't want to do is get to the last couple months of the spending period and then go, okay, now what do you want to do? Because there's no new projects we're going to do. I mean, we're going to run out of time by the time we hit this time next year. So how am I going to do it? Well, I know where I can spend it. I can spend it on something we're already spending it on, and that's HVAC for the building expansion. So it's a safeguard to make sure we don't lose any federal money. So you can approve it now, you can approve it later, but at some point, that's the safeguard that I have available for the county so we don't lose the federal dollars.
How does that impact the money that we borrowed to cover those expenses? So where does that go and how is that used?
Yep, it would actually increase the dollars available. So we're at $82.6 million. So if we ended up allocating $200,000, there'd be $82.8 million available for that project. So.
I'll move to approve resolution amendment number 5 to the 2023 budget for ARPA uses.
We have a motion and second. Is there any discussion?
I just point out that we lost Supervisor Fiedler somewhere along the way. While I was talking, he disappeared.
Yeah.
I know. That was weird.
Yeah.
So hearing we have no discussion? Or you, go ahead.
I know that Supervisor Fiedler had some other ideas in that, in particular to the $100,000. So I know that he wanted to voice those possibilities.
Yeah, he's not on.
So he's.
Do you want me to, he talked to me about it. Do you want me to explain what?
Yeah,
his
and I
idea
also
was?
had a discussion with him, so let's give it a shot.
Okay, all right. Between the two of us, maybe we can express his thoughts. So he wanted to take the $100,000 that we had allocated to CASA for 2023, because they will get $200,000 next year. That's in the budget document. But the $100,000, he had a couple of other organizations that he thought he would like to allocate money towards, and that would be $45,000 to, well, not the Salvation Army. No, it's Grace Place. Yes, yeah. I keep forgetting their name. So Grace Place, which provides housing for individuals, which is part of the Salvation Army, but that organization in particular. And then the second one was Turning Point out of River Falls, I believe, which is sexual abuse awareness and assistance that they provide. So it's purchase of services. So we can purchase services. It looks like Bob's coming back in now. So we can purchase service from these organizations.
Hi, Ken. I'm back in now.
Yeah, I was just explaining it. So I've given them just a brief background of the two organizations and allocating of $45,000 to each organization. I asked them to keep it under $50,000. When you exceed $50,000, the reporting requirements become different. The contract and the details that have to occur are much greater. So he had suggested $45,000 for each one. And then the numbers are flexible. So, I mean, he took $100,000, turned it into $90,000. So the dollar amounts are flexible really in the end, because these are all estimates of how much is going to be left over. So if you had any more, Supervisor Fiedler, about justification for those two organizations or your thought pattern on that?
Thank you, Ken. I don't. I think you probably gave a very good explanation. I'm sorry, I couldn't zoom in. I was there for a while, then I got disconnected, and so I had to come in by call, so I was in the waiting room for a moment, so I missed part of it, and I apologize for that. But is it now appropriate to simply make the motion?
Yeah, there's a motion and a second on the table for the resolution
okay.
as originally
Great.
written.
I'll just keep quiet then.
Well, it'd be a motion to amend is, I think, would be appropriate at this point for what you want to accomplish.
Okay, so my motion would be then to amend the the utilization of our ARPA dollars by allocating $45,000 to the Salvation Army and $45,000 to Turning Point. Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
they're thinking right now, Supervisor Fiedler. No one's jumping on the second quite yet, but I see a lot of inquisitive thought patterns going on.
I'll second for discussion purposes.
So we have a motion and second, and we can have some discussion.
I would just simply add that we took the 100,000 away from CASA for 2023. That was kind of aimed at children. Now, the Salvation Army and Turning Point aren't directly aimed at children, but many of the clients that they serve are children, are families in need. And so it's the same general purpose that we had for CASA originally, in the sense that we're helping families that are very down and out. And these are two entities that do a tremendous amount of work for women who have been placed in very untenable situations, and also for families who need everything from food to clothing to a roof over their head. So I think it's and they really make the buffalo jump off the nickel, so to speak. Every dollar they would expend will be absolutely used for a good purpose, and I think this is something that we can definitely utilize in St. Croix County with this money for a very good purpose if we allocate it to these two things.
So my first question would be, are we really stretching the definition of contract for services? And could there then potentially be many other nonprofits who might feel like, well, gee, what about us? Are we being left out? Why weren't we considered? How much of a slippery slope are we really hopping onto?
Well, if the corporate counsel is there, I think she can answer that very well. But I think that the money is there. We want to allocate it. It's a good purpose. When others come forward, they can come forward. I don't view it as a slippery slope. I think we contract with these people on other things, or have in the past. And in chatting with the corporate counsel earlier, there was no issue in contracting with them for these services.
So legally, we can do this. It's not a donation. It would be either a memorandum of understanding or a purchase of service contract, and we would require them to use these ARPA funds for the ARPA purposes under the federal law. But they would have a wide array of, uses that they could use the money for. As far as the slippery slope, I don't know if that's a question directed to me, but it's always possible that other nonprofits would say, why not me? Why wasn't I able to ask for that? So that's always a possibility.
One other question, maybe this would be for Sean. I'm curious as to if we don't provide that additional 100,000 to CASA, what is the impact or the consequence for CASA? That would be the other concern.
I would say this, that my job is to raise funds, and I continue to do it, and I just have to take it in stride. And I can't really, on the fly here, kind of think about what the actual impact would be. I would just say that we would hunker down and continue to raise funds and make it work.
Go ahead, Cara.
Are you able to hear me at all? Yes. No. So I want to thank Supervisor Fiedler for bringing this forward. I think these are two great organizations. However, I feel like the reason we're considering these ARPA funds for CASA is because we're really trying to create that foundation for them so they can move forward and continue to do some of the services that are really valuable to what we heard from the judges and for the county moving forward. And then we talked about this infusion of funding being a kind of a one-time thing. So while I really respect the work that the other two organizations do, I'd like to keep the money for CASA with the current motion, with the original motion.
Hey, Kara, when you talk, can you talk a little quieter? Because for some reason you're like blowing the speakers out. It's like, it's interesting, but yeah, there you go. Perfect. Thank you. Everyone looked at me to ask, so here I am.
Thank you for bringing that up. I can't hear it, so.
Well, this is Bob again. If I can just add a quick thought. I thought that the actions of the full board were, frankly, to take away the 100,000 for 2023 for CASA, and then we voted to give them 200. And so the board has kind of said no, they don't want to do it 100 for CASA this year, but they wanted to do 200. So we had 100 left over. So this seemed to be a very good option. If we weren't going to give it to CASA, let's give it to somebody that comes as close to CASA as we can to help the same type of plans. That would be my only thought.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's two things. One, I think the merits of CASA, from my perspective, have never been in question. It's how we got to this point of this much money coming from the county through whatever means it is to CASA. That was always my question. Frankly, I think, man, if we go down this path of Salvation Army here or Grace Place here, and I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've had coffee with where they're like, hey, we've got this great cause, and what does the county have for money? This right here, and we're even doing it with CASA, is opening Pandora's box for this. You did it there, why aren't you doing it here? We impact this and we impact that, and I don't know. I would much rather take the 100,000 and which we were intended to do 200. I think that was what we agreed upon at the committee of the whole, and take the 100,000 and set it aside. We have until the end of 2024. And if CASA's hitting goals, why can't we match it at the end of the year and take what was originally intended and seed it? I just think it's a slippery slope if we start parsing out which organizations we have contracts with or agreements with for services. I think we're going down a very, very slippery slope. Corp Counsel won't say it, I'll say it. I don't think my constituents would like this very much. I think it would be a bad path to go down.
More? So we've heard from just about everybody. Both directions, are we ready to?
Well, I mean, can I ask, informal, right? Yeah, okay. So I kind of want to hear from my fellow admin committee members. What happens when other charitable organizations start coming to all of us, wanting us to do contract for services? What are you guys going to say to them? And this is not a rhetorical question. I'm dead serious. I want to hear your opinions on this. Are you going to tell them that was a one-time thing, or we just chose those two because of how they impacted? How are we going to approach this if we approve this? I mean, I'm already down the slope of, I've already had one person with the CASA stuff coming to me and going, see, you told me that you can't, and I'm having to tell them no. So I want to hear from you guys what we're going to do if we decide to go down this path. What are you going to tell other nonprofits as we're skimming along the levy limits and borrowing money? What are we going to do?
Well, one answer is it is ARPA money. It's one-time money. And I've never been approached before. I suspect we have done MOUs before, service contracts with nonprofits. And so I don't see this as the slippery slope that some might. It's worthwhile. We can consider others on their merits in the future when we have suitable funds to perhaps use on it.
I guess I'm going to echo Supervisor Burning's comments. I'm very concerned about the reaction from other nonprofits. Not that these two aren't worthy, but I think it is a slippery slope. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm concerned about trying to spread that wealth around. And we're focusing on CASA because it's a new organization. They're trying to get on their feet. And the judges certainly have found it to be really impactful. So focusing on that organization seems appropriate for these available funds. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and to give you guys an out, you don't have to do anything with this resolution. I mean, because the funds don't get spent until you approve it. And you can just wait and approve something at a later date. So the money doesn't go anywhere if you don't spend it. Well, till the end of next year, then it is.
Thank you.
Yeah. I won't let that happen, though.
I'll just bring a point into it. I guess before I would want to do something like this on either making the decision about a final or making the decision about something like this, I would want to get an opportunity to spend more time to consider what's out there and what we're trying to do and how this impacts. I'd like to see us be more focused on something where it's if we're going to be spending the money to make sure that it is something that is a direct impact to the county. And look at it from that aspect also. But I think to make a quick decision this evening, for my personal belief is I don't know that it's in our best interest to do that on a quick basis.
So the first vote would be on the amendment that's on the floor.
So you want a roll call on? So we'll do roll call on the amendment.
And this is Bob. If I can just ask, you also, as you said we didn't have to do anything. We could just leave it, drop the motion, drop the amendment, say, hey, we're not going to act on it, and just move on, and we don't have any votes.
Correct.
Yeah,
So if people want to withdraw everything, they could withdraw everything, and then you just continue on with the meeting and leave the money where it is. Answer for other questions in the future.
Well, my thoughts are I think we came to a pretty good consensus in the committee of the whole. I think we should take what we came up with in the committee of the whole. We should pass that on to the county board so that it could be part of the budget process so that that's not getting thrown out of alignment. And I think it's fair to take that $100,000 and set it off to the side and maybe put it as a separate line item during the next county board meeting. And let's have a thoughtful discussion then. Is there any way to do that?
So the
Well, this
resolution.
is Bobby. I think we certainly could do that, but then I think going to Scott's point, if he wanted to consider many different options and ponder it for a while, then you wouldn't want to do it in 2 weeks. But hey, we're already giving $200,000 to CASA. It's not like the board did act on that. They took away $100,000 from CASA. So this isn't taking anything more away from CASA. This is implementing what we did for CASA with the 200. It's just that we're now expending the 100. But if people don't want to act quickly on expending it on these two entities, then as Ken said, he's giving us an out. Just drop the motion, drop the amendment, and move on.
I think what I would recommend, the resolution as written is to amend the 2023 budget. Supervisor Burning, what you're talking about is the budget discussion for 2024. So I think what I'm hearing the supervisors discuss is that you should vote on the amendment, whether that passes or fails, and then vote on the initial motion. And if that fails, then this resolution is done, and in the future, we can bring forward a new resolution regarding the items that you would like the monies to go to. That is how procedurally, I think, would be the best way to proceed today.
So
We just need to vote.
Yeah.
we have
So
a
we're
vote.
voting on the amendment.
Yep, so if we want to do roll call, the first one is on the amendment to, and if you can kind of read back what that was exactly.
Yes, the motion is to amend the resolution to modify the $100,000 originally to go to CASA to instead $45,000 for Salvation Army and $45,000 for Turning Point.
Okay, want to do roll call?
Chair Cook,
No.
Vice Chair Counter? No. Supervisor Long?
No?
Supervisor Burning?
No.
Supervisor Fiedler?
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll, again, you want to read back what the original amendment was, and we can vote on that.
Yeah,
Roll
so
call.
the
Thank
original
you.
motion was to approve the resolution for amendment number 5 to the 2023 budget for ARPA uses, which is $100,000 for CASA and any remaining funds to the HVAC system.
Chair Cook?
Yes.
Vice Chair Counter?
No,
Supervisor Long?
Yes.
Supervisor Burning?
No.
Supervisor Fiedler?
Yes.
So the resolution passed, and so this would be forwarded on to the county board at the November 7th meeting.
And that will take, the 100,000 for CASA, because it's a 2023 budget amendment, requires a 2/3 vote.
all right, move on to item 2, which is, I think you wanted item 2 to be number 2, so, or item 3 to, okay. Resolution adopting 2024 budget and establishing a tax levy.
If you like, I can read the whole budget to you. I'm trying to get to the resolution. Hold on, guys. So the resolution approves the budget, and this budget that you see in front of you is the amended version from the input from the committee of the whole. So it increased sales tax by 600,000, and it increased public protection, specifically law enforcement, for an additional 4 patrol positions, which is the $600,000. So that is adjusted. You will see this blank here, special charges pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 70.63. Those are given to me by the state. They typically come in right at the end of October. So before we get to the county board, I will fill those in. We really have no choice. It is what the state says it's going to be. And it's usually hundreds of dollars, below 1,000. It's a small amount, but I don't even know what that is, but the state gives us those, and we add that to our total tax levy every year. So the levy will be right around $45,100,000. So we're just waiting to finalize that exact number. But this resolution then does those two things: approves the budget and approves the tax levy.
All right, I'll move to approve the resolution adopting the 2024 budget and establishing the levy tax, or tax levy.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Bob
Yep.
Fiedler.
Yes.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm Mr. Question. So how did that resolution that we just passed, was that only for the 2023 budget? So that didn't impact this at all? Okay, all right, I'm just double checking.
Any other discussion?
I do,
Go ahead.
sorry. Since we're talking about the 2024 budget and we're approving it, I would like to, there's another item that I think in relation to that I think it would be good for us to discuss, and that is the policy of being conservative on our sales tax revenue. And the policy that we've followed in the past that assisted us in supporting our KIPs, so it minimized our borrowing. This year, we did a slight variation of that to fund for public service, which obviously the board was in favor of. But I think it would be prudent for us to at least reaffirm that that is a sound policy, and going forward, it would be worthwhile continuing that, even though we changed it a little bit to fund public service, and that will be absorbed, I think, in future budgets. So I'd like to hear from everyone else on the committee on our reaffirmation of that.
And one of the things I guess I wanted to bring up with that was we discussed and we agreed on, I believe it was a $600,000 adjustment from the sales tax to offset for the hiring of the additional 4 deputies. That's substantial out of the $1 million that we typically would do. If we looked at that for the future, we realize that the county is growing on an annual basis and that we have net new revenue has been pretty much present every year from our growth. As we have our growth, can we take the growth adjustment and offset back so that we can try to keep towards the policy of having the funds that we've had, so that we can maintain our ability to use KIP for the purposes that we originally intended?
Yeah, I think, if for the 2025 budget, if I'd been projecting a $1 million increase, I can then increase by 400,000, reabsorbing that 600, get us back to the cushion that the county board wants to see between projected and budgeted. So yeah, that's totally possible. This is, it really affects us on a one-year basis because it's going to be reabsorbed in future budget decisions.
This is Bob. I could concur in what Chairman Long said.
Can you repeat that? You came in kind of echoey.
Yeah, I just concur in the remarks of Chairman Long.
He agrees with you, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted something from all of us? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just think for me, when we have operational dollars and we're in an operational shortfall and we're moving that to capital improvements year after year after year, and it's a trend and not just an anomaly, I think it is good fiscal policy for us, especially for our taxpayers, to be able to use that for operations rather than go to referendum for them. So I'm personally very happy that we have gotten some reinforcements for the deputies, for the sheriff's office, and I think, it was a good decision by the board. So thank you for echoing that sentiment.
Do you have anything, Cara?
I would just say, I think as I mentioned at the county board meeting, I had been supportive of the approach Ken's been taking in the past. So I'd like to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation moving forward where we're going to have some trouble with our operational funding and expenses. And also, I would hate to see us increase the interest that we pay on KIP projects moving forward, because we will have to continue to do those. So I've been supportive of the approach Ken has been taking for some time.
Just one other, just point of reference. I think it's important that we make mention of the fact that even though we allocated an additional 600 some thousand for sheriff deputies, we didn't really follow our budget priorities. So there were other priorities that we actually rated higher that we did not address. So I just want to make sure that I point that out so that next year, when we set budget priorities, we want to be careful to make sure that we're setting them appropriately and following those priorities. And that also gives the county administrator the right direction as to what he should be, the priorities that he should be setting in setting the next budget.
Just thank you, by the way. Just a quick retort to that, and it's not like, Bob, I'm not slapping you or anything. I'm just, the exercise that we did with the buckets, where we all plopped a bunch of, what were they, chips into buckets, and then came back and, oh, here's your priorities. I thought the exercise was great, but the discussion beyond the buckets didn't really materialize. I mean, it did, but everyone was kind of not really, I feel like it was kind of one of those things where people didn't understand kind of what was going on. And I think as time went on and we realized that the sheriff's office needed, I mean, again, we preached for how long. I think we do away with the buckets next year and just go with a committee of the whole where we have an open discussion. That's just my suggestion, because I think if we were to redo that and you were to tell some of the supervisors, like a lot of us that voted for reallocating those dollars, that the sheriff's office was going to be, 4 more deputies was going to be like 13th out of however many priorities, I think we would have I think there would have been better discussion coming out of that bucket. But, it is what it is. And yeah, I agree with you. Priorities are priorities, but we also have the ability to change those priorities if we need to on the fly. So, and I appreciate your guys' adjustment to it, but that's just my opinion on the bucket exercise. Thought it was cool at first, but I don't think it accomplished quite what we wanted.
So you want me to kick the bucket?
I don't. Like, that's bad.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that one.
So I think we currently have a motion for the approval of the resolution adopting the 2024 budget and establishing tax levy. So move on with roll call.
Yep, you can do roll call or a voice.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Chair Cook,
Yes?
Vice Chair Counter,
Yes.
Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Burning,
Yes.
Supervisor Fiedler.
Yes.
I want to actually thank my peers and all the staff this year. Like, we went through some serious discussions at the committee of the whole, and I know I can be long-winded, and some of my peers can be long-winded and ask a lot of questions and go through procedure, but I want to, like, this is my third budget. This was the most in-depth we got and allowed the supervisors really to understand what they're voting on. And I feel the most equipped I ever have to go back to my constituents and talk with them about what we're doing and how we're doing it and the reasons behind it and justifying it. So I want to thank all of you in this committee in particular for your hard work and I guess putting up with me and some of the others. So thank you all very much.
All right. We can move on to item, I guess we can go to the financial report.
Yeah, the financial report is in your packet. So if you page through that, I don't think you'll see anything too terribly exciting. It's through September. I think we're tracking right on target with where I'd expect us to be at this point in the year. Let's get to the extras. So vehicle registration fee, you can see that collection is coming in right on target, about 860,000 per year is where we're tracking for that. You will see that on the next county board agenda. The Transportation Committee is recommending an increase in that vehicle registration fee. And then you'll also see sales tax. So you'll see when we hit that, 7-digit number, the $1 million, so the last 4 months in a row, we've hit $1 million. Whereas last year we had, I think, 7 out of the 12 months, and the year before that, 3 out of the 12, and the year before that, 1 out of the 12. So we're tracking right on target for the $12 million or higher for this year. And you can also go back to our KIP and our ARPA, and we're showing the available balances there, about $7 million in the KIP. And then the ARPA, while it's only showing about 121,000, I know of additional projects that are going to close under budget on there. Are there any other questions on any of the financial reports? All right, very good.
All right, we can move on to the discussion on review of bailiff compensation with Audrey.
So last month, you guys approved a regrade request for bailiffs, moving them from $15.15 an hour starting pay to $16.05 an hour. So we regraded them, and during that request, it was brought up to see if there was also additional compensation that might be more prevalent for that position as far as call-in pay or call-off pay, or just looking at their wages again to see did we regrade them kind of specifically where they should be compared to the labor market. So I did do another look at the labor market, and there's 2 other counties within our labor market that do call-off pay, so it's definitely not a majority. There wasn't any that I found that do on-call pay. And the ones that do call-off pay, it's within a time frame of the trial being canceled. They would pay for 2 hours of pay due to that. So when we looked at the wages in that labor market analysis, they really kind of varied, which is why I said within the original regrade request, I had said that the market analysis basically put them at a grade 55, and we ended up placing them at a grade 52. That grade 55 was based specifically on other counties that pay an hourly amount versus like a per diem amount. If I start to look at those, it really starts to fluctuate that wage. So the market analysis came up to about $16.80 an hour. We're at $16.05. If I add in those counties that pay a per diem amount, it drops it down to $15.45 an hour if I break out that per diem to an hourly rate. So I think we're kind of right in the middle where we need to be, especially when we look at an internal comparison. And then we also, down the pipe, are hoping for an approval on a new wage grid in Q1 of 2024. That is also going to increase their wages in the future. So we would be looking at moving them from $16.05 up to $16.63 on that new wage grid if it gets approved by the board. So that's also going to give them some additional compensation, hopefully not too far into the future. So that was kind of where my analysis sat. I think overall, we are comparable with the labor market that we're in, where we placed them currently, and they'll continue to grow if that's approved in 2024.
Yeah, we're not recommending any additional adjustments right now because we know a new wage grid will address some of it. Basically, we've finished the analysis of the wage grid. What the wage grid will do is it'll bring the bottom up and it'll take the top up, and then everyone will just flip into the new grid to the wage closest to where they're at. But that provides the higher starting and higher top end, which is really was one of the questions from last month. So the new wage grid will resolve that. That's why we're not asking for anything additional tonight. We just wanted to give you an update, though.
Yeah, their current top end, or their previous top end, they maxed out at 1732. Since you guys approved the regrade, now that's 2005. And if we approve the new wage grid, it'll go up to 2306. So it definitely increases the earning potential.
So you're looking for an approval of this, or was this just informational for now? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on for reclassification request for jail social worker 1 to 2 for the jail social worker 1, 2, and 3 with Audrey.
Yeah, so currently the jail social worker position is approved for a social worker 1 or a social worker 2. We just had an opening in which we did a requisition, and we had applicants that were actually overqualified based on what we allow for positions, education and credentialing. So they didn't have a social worker license, but they had an even higher certification. But because they don't meet our social worker 2 qualifications, they can't even apply for the position. So it brought up a good point of we should add this third level. We already have mental health professionals graded within the system. They already exist within Health and Human Services, and it falls within the administrative code that's required for that position. So I think just adding that opportunity, it opens up our candidate pool. And it also allows for career progression down the road also. So if we have a social worker 2 in that position that goes for that master's degree or that extra credentialing, it would allow them to promote up to that mental health professional position as well.
So is this one that you, so we need to vote? So we have a motion on this for the reclassification request for jail social worker 1 and 2 to jail social worker 1, 2, and 3. A motion to approve by Bob, and do we have a second? Kara?
Second.
Okay, got it.
Thank
Thank you.
Discreet.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll just do a voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any nays? Okay. We'll assume that we have unanimous. Okay, next item, resolution amending the purchasing policy with Chuck.
We became aware of this with the auditors. They reached out to us and asked if we had a policy to make sure any dollars that we get or spend with federal money is that we're checking the vendors and make sure they're not suspended from the SAM.gov. So we kind of changed it and put a verification process in that we have to check it twice a year and have documentation so we can supply the auditors with that next year.
I'm kind of curious as I read through this that we added that only to apply to grant-funded purchases. Wouldn't we also want to know if there was any issues or problems with some of these vendors on non-grant funded purchases? Or is there something else in the purchasing policy that I didn't see, which is very possible.
No, yeah, it's an audit weakness. But in this change, we just did the federal because that's what the auditors bring up. But I have been talking to Dustin about a process that we would be verifying and the vendors and who's setting up vendors and that type of thing, so.
Yeah, the federal government's looking at it from the perspective of everyone that's going to receive federal dollars over 50,000 has to be registered on sam.gov. And then that registration, if they let it lapse or they don't keep it up, they'll end up on the debarred list. So the federal government says if you're going to spend our money, if we're going to give it to you and you're going to spend it and give it to a contractor, then you have to go through and verify that list. So if you think about it from all of the contracts that the county does, our waste hauler, our custodial services, or something much more routine, they're not registered on sam.gov because they don't need to be. They don't have any federal contracts. So checking them on that list wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't show up. So.
Move to approve resolution amending purchasing policy.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, unanimous. Is that it? I think we're good. So we have is there any requests for future agenda items? Crickets. Moving on, announcements and correspondence. Do we have anything? Okay, date of the next meeting is no.
Third Tuesday in November, whatever day that might be.
November 21st,
Thanksgiving week.
2023.
Sharp week.
All right, so next meeting, November 21st, 2023. We'll adjourn the meeting at 5:52. Thank you.